Okay, we are live. So today is February 20th. It's just another weekly GSoC special interest group meeting. Yeah, we had meetings every week, and I believe that we had more meetings that all our special interest groups all together. But yeah, we continue organizing them. So yeah, there is no specific agenda for the meeting today. Let's just discuss questions. Let's just discuss action items, status, and the progress. We have 1 week left till the separate organizations will be announced. So at the next meeting on Wednesday, we will be either celebrating and coordinating the next communication efforts. Like, yeah, I'll try to stage the blog post or whatever in advance. But yeah, next week we should know the result. And if we don't get accepted, then yeah, we will be just doing retrospective, I believe. So yeah, let's see. I'm optimistic about this year. Okay, let me share the screen. Does everybody have access to the meeting notes document? Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see what we have. We have a bunch of action items on me. And yeah, I can just say in bulk that I haven't actually implemented anything because I was completely snowed on the Java 11 availability. But yeah, I will make sure that I will follow up on all action items before the weekend. So all these action items are still on me. And yeah, regarding Martin, so Jenkins REST API, yeah, it's done. Artifactory hasn't been actually done.
Artifactory, I pushed, it moved to draft, and I created a pull request to move it to the published state.
Oh yeah,
I think yesterday.
Yeah, let's probably take a look while we're around. Okay, so it's Artifactory. Okay, so yeah, we have text, we have discussions, and yeah, I believe that all comments from JC have been integrated here, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So if there is no objections, I would just post it. So we have quick start guide. We don't have newbie friendly issues for this project, if I understand correctly. But yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah, I think that it should be okay to publish it. Jeff, what do you think?
I agree.
Okay, then we can just Git draft. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay, then we have a more published project. Okay, yeah, thank you, Martin, for that.
All right.
So now it's done. Then yeah, we had a advanced discard build step sync up. It was on Monday, right?
It was on, yeah, it was on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, this is good, and yeah, I believe that everything is fine. Are there any meeting notes for this sync up, by the way?
No, there's no meeting notes. It was more, no, there's no meeting notes.
And no recording, right?
And no recording because couldn't do it. So I have to learn how to do recordings properly.
Okay, I'd like to do a KT with Martin, probably Evelina and whomever wants to join. Because Evelina also had an issue with that, even though it's resolved. I'll send a message. So let's try to do it next Monday, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll just copy all my action items from here, I believe. Sounds like I should start doing something. Okay. We took TT with Martin, agreed, etc. Yeah, that's okay. Or probably I will just do a KT tomorrow as a part of advocacy and outreach SIG meeting.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, if you do the same type, I'll try to attend.
Yeah, I just need an agenda for the meeting, and maybe I will address that. If not, I will run a separate meeting. It's on the morning in Europe, so probably it's not comfortable for you, Martin.
Okay.
Okay, so
what time in the morning?
8 a.m. UTC.
Okay, no, that's too early.
Well, it's too early even for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what else do we have? Documentation plugin, it was also published, I believe. So we have only 2 projects left. One is Jenkins and the machine learning thing. And another one is freestyle job to pipeline job converter, which is on Craig. But yeah, I believe that it hangs because, well, yeah, Craig didn't have chance to address comments.
Okay.
So I will try to reach out to him, or maybe somebody else. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is anybody specifically interested in this project?
Can you repeat the project name, Oleg?
Freestyle project converter to pipeline job.
I would be interested in this, depending on how it's implemented.
Mm-hmm.
I have cases of freestyle jobs that I'd be happy to convert to pipeline. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll just park it as is, but yeah, somebody needs to ping Craig.
Okay, I can ping him. I think he hangs out in the pipeline authoring SIG.
Yeah, he's actually pretty active in the Jenkins community nowadays. Yeah, so yeah, it shouldn't be a big problem. I'm just trying to a bit paralyze, and yeah, I will appreciate help. Okay, so I believe so. The last project is machine learning, but yeah, Martin is off till 22nd of February, if I recall correctly. Yeah. So I believe that we shouldn't be touching this project. It got some feedback, and it also got one potential mentor. So I will process the mentor part, but for the rest, we really need Martin. Another Martin. But yep, I think that we will be able to publish it soon, preferably shortly after the GSoC organizations are announced. Okay. And yeah, I believe that's it. So we could just focus on questions then, if there is no other topics to discuss.
At a time for questions?
Yeah, I think we can just talk about any questions you may have, and yeah, then if you have some time left, we can do other organization stuff.
Like I was interested in the external workspace management plugins, and I was wondering if I should start doing some specific or concrete job right now. Like I noticed that there is a item in the external workspace manager concerned with build the SARG plugins. Yeah, that is what the SARG is interested in. So is there any chance we can like discuss how to organize the code base, how to start with the actual work, or is it just still preparation for the final project idea?
So you're interested to understand how Jenkins organization works, right?
Or how Jenkins would be organized? No, I just want to discuss with like my potential mentors. How do I organize like doing a cloud feature for the for one service provider like the EFS, AWS EFS.
So, Martin, would you be interested to answer this question?
I can try, but it's hard for me. I've never worked with the cloud provider, so I don't know how, like on the implementation side, it would work. I can only answer in generalities, such as use extension points and study the code base, unfortunately.
If it's okay to discuss with me, I would like to first write a draft idea of how I'm gonna plan the organizations. How do I gonna organize a code base? I think it's doable. Yeah, maybe in the next few weeks. I just come back from a vacation, and it's like 6 in the morning. I really had a hard time getting up early.
Yeah, that's understandable. So, if needed, we will be scheduling other meetings in other time zones. So,
it's okay.
Yeah, are you based on the West Coast?
Yeah, I'm in the West Coast.
Okay.
Vancouver.
Yeah, so we have Jeff and Lloyd, but yeah, they're early risers, so for them it's not a problem. But yeah, if needed, we will split our meetings so that we can offer better coverage for this region. Regarding the project itself, Martin is totally right. So all kinds of Jenkins are. So the main idea of Jenkins is that it's automation framework, and it's fully based on extension points in terms of the implementation. And external workspace manager already has some extension points. So, for example, extension points Jenkins. At some point, I will remember the link. Yeah, so so there is a list of extension points for all Jenkins plugins and the core, and there is external workspace manager. So I'll just put the link to the meeting notes, but here you may see that there are 2 extension points. One disk info provider, which provides disk status, etc., and also disk allocation strategy, which implements the logic of selection the disks and workspace from multiple options. But what it doesn't do there is effectively providing the disk. So, for example, getting data from EFS, etc. So my understanding is that there would be a new extension point here, which allows to define source of the provisioning. Now there is only file system provisioning de facto, but we could create a new extension point which would allow to somehow customize that. And it would be a starting point. And after that, we can provide some reference implementations. And of course, having EFS as a reference implementation would be something really interesting.
Yeah, actually, there should be more extension points. Like I have mentioned before, there's it needs to support the Beauty Scar plugins, and now it's not supported in the current version of External Workspace Manager. Yeah, maybe I have to work with Nassar, right? Is that Nassar listening? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm listening. So yeah, I think also the problem mentioned that the builds which are in the external workspace are not being discarded. So I think that can be integrated with the external workspace manager plugin, and I think yes, we have to work with together if you both gets approved.
Yeah. Also, I know there's like some monitoring issues. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so just to provide you some hints, guys. Yeah, these projects are related to each other, but it's not that one project blocks another, because the discarded build steps plugin operates with Jenkins core APIs. And Jenkins core API invokes, for example, removal of builds. So if, I don't have a Jenkins instance which I can show, or okay, I'll use one of instances. So yeah, it's probably not the best example, but okay. So here, if you just go to the build history, yeah, you can delete a build here if you log in. And when you delete a build, Jenkins calls extension points for cleanup of the data, including cleanup of workspaces. So just for cleanup feature, how it would be happening, discard build steps will be discarding the build, and then Jenkins will be invoking its own extension points to actually remove the data related to this build. And you can build on the top of this extension point to free external workspaces. Or you can use fingerprints engine to trace usage of workspaces, and then you will be able to retrieve and delete data from there as well. So, yeah, I believe we could have a code dev about that. I'm not sure what would be the best time frame.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so I just want to say one thing that if like we can have one KT with through which like we can understand the working of external workspace and how the builds which are not discarded through that can be understood in a more preferable way with the mentors and the students interested in that.
Sorry, I didn't quite get it. Could you please repeat?
Yeah, sure. So, like, I'm just asking for a KT through which the means working of the current external workspace can be understood in a more better way, and we can know that how the Jenkins core API can be integrated with that, and how the build discards can be done through the external workspace manager. Because as you mentioned, that the builds which are not discarded in the external workspace should be linked with this plugin. So I think that if some more knowledge we can get of that plugin and the working and also the implementation.
There is a raw selector plugin integrated with external workspace manager. So
yes, there is a run. So the run selector plugin actually filters the builds on the basis of the some logic, but the builds which are not discarded in the external workspace manager, I think that is that could be the issue that could be solved. That could be solved along with that plugin only.
Well, it's hard to say for sure because how I would see build discarder plugin. So let me show you. There is build discarder extension point. It actually one of the logics. So in Jenkins UI, you can say that discard all builds. And once you click that, you can select various strategies, and there is a number of strategies available right now. So, for example, Jenkins core, build rotator, etc. And my understanding that advanced build discarder would be one of the options here. And it would be offering some additional logic as discussed in the project idea and as it will be described in your proposal, but it's one of the options. And yeah, finally, all these discarded logic. So if we take a look at the Java doc, one purpose of this extension point is to actually perform garbage collection. So you invoke that, and it executes a task against job. So it decides which builds to deallocate, and then executes on that. And your implementation will be invoking standard methods For example, let's take run, I believe. So in run, there should be a method for deletion, at least. Yeah,
Yes,
run delete.
here.
And this run delete method, effectively, when it executes, it will be invoking other extension points, etc. So, for example, you in build discarded plugin finally end up here invoking deletion, and then the plugin, for example, external workspace manager, it will receive a message that the build is being discarded, and then this plugin will be able to just go and delete workspaces if it's configured, and yeah, that would be the integration.
Okay. So that external workspace manager plugin would just show the message that these builds have been discarded, and then the plugin which will be implemented or a new plugin which will be introduced through an extension point, that would go and just call the method and it would just delete the builds, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So I think in external workspace manager plugin also some code base needs to be understood, because at which level the method should be called, I think that should be known, right?
Well, external workspace manager, yeah, I'm not sure whether I recall the code correctly. It was a while ago for me. So here, what it does, there is already some implementation details, and if I recall correctly, it already has listeners for automatically discard the data or not. Martin, do you remember the code?
Which part?
No.
Which part? Maybe I have a.
So after completion of the job, it may delocate the workspace.
You may delete the workspace?
Yeah, just a second, let's take a look.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to find it.
Maybe I messed up the things. Let's take a look. Yeah, so what we have facets. So there is, so effectively we have some metadata attached to fingerprints, and let's take a look whether there is logic for deletion. Workspace browser root action. So yeah, it just allows browsing the workspace there, but yeah, probably you're right, there is no method for deletion. Yeah, let's see.
Okay.
So yeah,
that method should.
There is example workspace cleanup. So yeah, here you may see that actually they implement cleanup using another plugin, workspace cleanup plugin. But yeah, it's not something we would like in terms of these two stories, because what would it be that workspace manager will be receiving external call, it will be checking the build metadata and cleaning up workspaces, so on and so on. So yeah, you're right. The logic is not implemented in the plugin.
Yeah, it's like the external workspace are predefined, and it is reused by different builds and different projects. So I haven't seen there is anything related to deleting a workspace. Yeah.
Yep. So it's relatively simple to implement, I believe.
Yeah, you don't agree.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the logic which we will need to create, and well, it's a good addition to the plugin. So run listener, Jenkins. So there is extension point run listener, and this extension point effectively has, it has method like on deleted. And yeah, so effectively you will be just creating extension point implementation and subscribing to these events. At least, well, if it works. But yeah, I believe it's how it would look like. So effectively, discard build step plugin or whatever will be invoking run delete method, and then it will be ending up in this endpoint invocation for the listener, and hence you will be able to follow up an external workspace manager and clean up workspaces if it's needed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it quite makes sense to me.
Yeah. So obviously there may be different details once we get to that, but yeah, I believe that to start the investigation, it should be helpful information so that you can experiment a bit with existing extension points and implementations. So yeah, if you need anything else for the proposal, just let us know.
I'm gonna use
I've
it.
got a question actually.
Yeah, bring it on.
So on Monday, we were presented, let me see if I can share this link. We were presented this file. I'm going to paste it in the chat. And maybe I should share my screen.
I'm sharing.
Okay.
Okay.
So if this is a user, and this user has prepared this example for us, and he spent, somebody's microphone is rubbing, and it's making lots of noise. Okay, so
There he is.
okay, thank you. And so if you scroll down, so the idea here for, sorry, I should start at the top.
Oh, okay.
There's multiple stages, and the way this user imagines that the advanced build discarder would work is first, line 5, a default configuration for the build discarder. So, or on line 5, there's some default. And then the user would prepare some filters on line 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And so he would create these filters and give them specific names. Obviously, the example is written with log rotator, but not the log rotator, it's a new one.
Yeah, so it would be something like that, advanced discarder. So for example, filter 1, filter 2, something like that, right?
Okay, I'm not build discarder, advanced build. Okay, some filters. And then these filters would be activated later in the different stages.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is interesting. That's why I want to show it. And so depending on how far along the build, the pipeline progresses into the different stages, these builds have to be retained. The retention criteria for the build changes.
Yeah, why don't we integrate it with another plugin? For example, if you take milestone plugin, we could say that it's for milestone 1 or something like that. And here there is, yeah, it may look a bit weird, but yeah, I don't recall the correct syntax or whatever. There is a milestone plugin for pipeline. So maybe something like that. So what it means is that, yeah, when it reaches milestone 1, this filter is activated. Milestone plugin, Jenkins. Oh yeah, it's even easier. So it's not for declarative pipeline. I'm not sure what would be syntax for declarative, or maybe we could ask Andrew about that. But yeah, we could just say that it's something like that, maybe. So yeah, what you could do, if you just need declarative behavior with limited functionality, you could do something like that. So you can enable filter or when it reaches a particular milestone. So here, for example, it would be discard enabled only for this stage because we pass a milestone for this stage. And after that, the filter is enabled.
We talked about the milestone filter, and the milestone, I thought the milestone would decide the fate of a paused build, whereas the build discarder decides the fate of completed builds.
Well, it build may complete, but it may fail. So, for example, it may fail on build sources, and it will never reach this phase. And it means that it will never complete the milestone 1.
Right. However, the default filter is 5 days or 5 builds, as shown on the line at the top. So the default discard, I guess not filter, but there's two things with build discarder. There's conditions for discarding a build and filters. So the condition might be 5 days, but the filter is how many days has it been? Has it been 5 already? So there's a difference between the filter and the condition. The filter tests for the condition.
Yep. So
the condition is not the filter, in my mind.
Well, it's an implementation detail.
Yeah.
So yeah, technically you can implement anything, and it would be a matter for mentors and for the student to define what is actually going to be implemented. Because yeah, in Jenkins can be implemented either way. It just depends on what you actually need.
Right. Now, could you scroll down to, maybe line 40 or 50? There's another thing here. Okay. For example, on line 63. Now the build has been deployed to production, and in this case, the user says that when you reach production, the build should never be discarded. It should stay in Jenkins forever. That's the user criteria. Yeah,
but for this stage, we already have such logic in Jenkins. In Jenkins, you can actually just mark builds as keep forever, and they will be kept forever.
Oh.
So for this particular case, yeah, probably it was just an example, but for that, so there is no such pipeline method. But yeah, you can ultimately implement this method and use existing Jenkins APIs.
Interesting. So for example, line 42. Line 42 is we've reached quality assurance stage. And so the condition for discarding this particular build would be, is the one that is shown on line 7 near the top.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's keep for 10 days or something. Yeah, 30 days, I think I saw.
So yeah, I think it makes sense to take a look at this project, but well, you can implement whatever you need in Jenkins. It might be more difficult or less difficult depending on what you want, because yeah, if you need some stateful logic, then it becomes a bit more complicated because you need to inject actions into the build, but it's something doable. If you just want metadata like something like that, yeah, it will likely be an action or fingerprint as well, but yeah. it would be a bit more easier.
Okay, so maybe it's easier than I thought it would be. If there's a possibility of creating a call to the keep build forever, we could have a call to keep build for a number of days.
So keep for a number of days, it would be definitely an advanced build discarder plugin. So keep
Yes.
forever is just a functionality which is already available in Jenkins. But there is no equal functionality but for keep for 5 days. So there is a lock rotator, but it doesn't work in such way. So you would need to somehow define a flag that this filter is applied. You would need to somehow save this flag to build XML so that it's persisted over restarts and Jenkins remembers that. And then when there is advanced build discarder plugin invoked, it checks these flags for historical builds and makes decisions. So it's totally possible. It will be a stateful logic, but yeah, it's something you can do in Jenkins. So for example, external workspace manager plugin, it's also stateful because it attaches fingerprints to track workspace usages in jobs. But yeah, it uses fingerprints for that. Okay, does it answer?
Yeah, but are you suggesting that the build discarder should also use fingerprinting?
Not necessarily. It can be either fingerprints or run actions. So run actions, well, probably it's not the best link, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, run actions actually deprecated because they're just replaced by action. So yeah, the idea of Jenkins that there are actionable objects, and actionable objects can persist the data. For example, yeah, this is action. And for example, all standard implementations like run, it's build. Or for example, queue item, it's queue data, abstract item, it's generally jobs and folders, also computers. They may have metadata stored in actions, and this interface allows to persist the actions if needed or to get them dynamically. But if you persist the action in the object, you can use this interface to retrieve the data. So action interface is used in Jenkins widely. For example, if we just take pipeline integration, we have Jenkins CI, there is a metadata class called runAction2. So yeah, 94 usages. And all these usages, and yeah, it starts from external workspace manager plugin due to whatever reason. Yeah, it means that the data is persisted on the disk there. And it's persisted specifically for pipeline because runAction2 was developed specifically for pipeline. So yeah, you can take a lot of existing implementations. Fingerprints is another engine, which is a bit less popular because yeah, it ties to artifacts. It doesn't tie to build IIDs, though yeah, there are plugins which just consider build as an artifact. But yeah, all the traceability happens there on the global level. So fingerprint applies to multiple jobs and multiple runs, but run action applies only to a single run. So depending on what you want, you can select different ways to persist the data. Is that okay with you, Martin?
Yeah, thank you. This is good to know, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, rule of thumb, you start from actions. If actions are not enough for your use case, you consider fingerprints. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, happy to help. Are there any other questions while we're around?
enough for me. I have all my questions.
Mm-hmm. Sorry?
No, not now. Right, I'm like not now.
Okay. Yeah, so in such case, I think we can just proceed in the chat. We have 10 minutes left. So if anybody is interested to discuss anything during these 10 minutes, let's do that. Or actually, what I wanted to do, if there is no other questions, is to take a look at the student guides. Because if you have any feedback about existing guidelines, it's something we would appreciate. So I'll just...
Okay.
Yeah, so since you already get some experience projects, GSoC students, so
Yeah. Yeah, I have one doubt, Oleg, that I have read in the GSoC documentation that some organizations have a limit of a project draft that your your draft or your proposal should not exceed some words. So, is there any restriction with this Jenkins organization that our proposal should not exceed some words or some pages like that?
Yeah, so the idea of the project ideas we have here, these are project ideas. So it means that the objective of all these descriptions is to give you an idea how the project would look like. Some projects are explicit like that, and they set expectation of what students communicate in their applications. So, for example, for external workspace manager, it's reasonable to expect that a student who submits a project idea there comes up with proposal, what would be the reference implementations. And same in other places. So all these project ideas are just project ideas. If you take this project idea and submit it as a part of your application, most likely it won't work well.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, there is no restriction in words or in the number of pages of our proposal, right? So, like, it can be 7 to 8 pages long too, right? Because, like, like, I am planning to, just put a flow chart or some steps that how will I approach to the problem and how my implementation, like how I'm planning to implement this. So like it would take some more pages. So
yeah,
I think
yeah. So GSoC application isn't about pages specifically. You may have a good project idea in 1 page or in 2 pages, or you may have 10 pages. So there are guidelines defined by Oracle, which also provide some advice of what has to be in the project idea. Not in the project idea, in the project proposal. Yeah, so what mentors, students, information for students. So here, do you have a specific section for project proposals? Application steps, and draft your own proposal. Yeah. So there is a student guide, GSoC student guide. So it is the good source information of that. And there is writing a proposal. What is expected, and actually this is what we would expect. So what you should focus on when you create a proposal, just to explain what exactly you want to deliver in your project. This is important. Of course, it's important to think about how it would benefit the community. In some cases, it depends on what you propose. So some project ideas here are pretty straightforward, some are not, and it depends. But it would be still an expectation. We need to understand that that you understand how it fits the Jenkins organization and what value it brings to the community and to Jenkins users. So it would be a part of that. And yeah, then this is actually what whatever you do. So if you have some ideas how it would be designed in, or what would be the architecture, please
Yeah.
put it to the proposal. It's helpful. If you have some ideas how to test it, what would be how you would design, for example, web UIs. It's also important. You can just put everything there, and all this information contributes to the proposal. So any original idea, any original approach is something which would be helpful.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Martin, Jeff, would you like to add something?
No.
Yeah, this is good. Another thing is that I've noticed when students prepare proposal is that they have goals for each coding period. I think there's 3 coding periods, and so it's important as the student attempts to scope the work for the different coding periods, and it's of course it can be adjusted as we go, but it's important for the student to.
Yeah, right. So you can take examples from previous years. I believe it's linked somewhere from here, or not. Maybe it's not longer linked. Yeah, project proposal. So it's
Okay,
Shen Yu. He's a mentor this year, but yeah, last year he was doing a GSoC project for core coverage API plugin. So for I just opened the example, and yeah, it includes some information from what would look it like, how it would be organized, etc. So one of the ways many organizations, including Jenkins, publish project ideas and applications from the previous year. Because our advice is when you create a project idea, you keep it public so that mentors can review that, others can review that, and that you can communicate it to the community. So yeah, here's an example of proposal, and yeah, it was a successful proposal. It was accepted. The project was completed. And yeah, you may see that there is some timeline with deliverables.
yes.
Yeah, and I believe we just stopped putting statuses at some point because the project was just completed earlier, I would say. But yeah, all these deliverables have been delivered. And you may see that deliverables is not just the plugin release per se. It's still various designs, various features to be put. So some fine-grained targets would be nice. And yeah, something like test automation, documentation, it's also deliverables, especially if you describe them in your proposal. So this is what you need to take in mind. And yeah, in Jenkins organization, we set a requirement that all projects have test automation, that all projects have some documentation, because we want the project results to be used. And hence, we set expectations for that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you all for the information.
Yep. I hope it helps. And yeah, if we get accepted, I think that next week we can take a look together at the proposals and maybe record a special guideline for that.
Yeah, sure. It will be much more helpful to us.
Okay.
For writing our proposal.
Okay. So. Proposals, yeah, recording session about proposals, applications. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have this. Or generally, we can just, if the current recording is good enough, we can just post it. Okay, anything else? I'll stop screen sharing. So, any other topics? We have 2 minutes before the meeting ends.
I don't have anything.
Okay, then I guess thanks everybody, and see you in Gitter. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
the last weekend before the hot part starts. If you get accepted, of course. And yeah, stay tuned. Okay.
Excellent.
Bye.
Good
Yeah,
luck
thank
to
you.
us
Bye-bye.
all.